I just want to welcome David Bryant from Catalyst Dietitian. So David is one of our longtime Bindi athletes, and he is also on track to be heading to Tokyo Olympics this year, so to the Paralympics. So welcome, David.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you, Belinda, and nice to see Bindi in the background.
Oh, yes, of course, yes. I'm sitting in Busselton in our Bindi headquarters, but Dave, you are not in your hometown, I don't think, at the moment. Whereabouts are you?
I am in Melbourne. Long story short, I have been training up in far north Queensland in Cairns for the last few weeks, getting some heat acclimatisation and training with the Untitled Pro Triathlon and Triathlon Australia squad. And yeah, I was meant to fly home after a 3-week camp on Sunday, and then I got the message that the WA border was shutting and I'd have to do a 2-week quarantine. So in most cases, I'd probably just grin and bear it and do a 2-week quarantine from home and I guess ride and run from my garage. But yeah, swimming's a little bit more difficult, and yeah, I just can't afford to be out of the water for 2 weeks. So yeah. Interesting world we live in. I could walk straight into Melbourne with no worries at all. So here I am now, and again, I'm grateful that I can train with my coach Danielle Stefano at Untitled Pro Triathlon, and be one of the training partners for Emma Jeffcoat, who actually just got announced as one of the female athletes on the Triathlon Australia team. So I'm in a good environment. I just saw that was announced
this morning. So yeah, you're in a great training environment. And so just for anyone who's watching this video, so here we are, we're the first week of July. And so Dave, when are you talking about the Paralympics? We're looking towards the end of August, I think.
Yeah, I think August 28th is race day for me on the Saturday. So I still got a bit of time up my sleeve to string together some good quality training weeks. But at the same time, I've been very consistent over the last 18 months. So I'm not chasing anything or looking to squeeze any last bit of training in. I'm ready to go well and truly in 8 weeks' time.
Which is great. But like you say, now's not the time to be sitting in quarantine and not in the pool. And so you're obviously making some sacrifices and choices in terms of where you're spending your time and maybe not with your family and even your work as a dietitian. Are you managing to continue that?
Yeah, the joys of the modern technology. I'm still working most afternoons as a dietitian through what we're doing now, the Zoom platform. So very grateful that I can still have a bit of income and keep dabbling with my dietetics side of things. And I think it also provides balance as well to take my mind off the training side. And I'm just very grateful that I've still got the ability to do both.
You can handle both of them. And so Dave, can you just take us back? When did you get started in triathlon?
Long story short, I was always this sort of team sport sort of person, and was the guy that avoided the swimming and athletics carnivals at school. And when I was about 15, 16, they realized that my left leg, my strong leg, compared to my club foot, was basically developing at a faster rate than my right. So they actually operated on my good leg to ensure that the disparity between my left and right legs didn't become any more apparent. I've now got an inch leg length difference, 3 size shoe difference, and not much of a right calf. And in grade 11, I just started doing some jogs after that knee operation for a bit of rehab, and that slowly turned into 20-minute to 20K runs in grade 12 and got the final spot on the cross-country team at the school I went to. So my passion for running was probably the first step. And then when I moved to Perth, first year out of school, I didn't really know anyone, and you could say all I had was running. So I kept running and slowly started to meet people. And as you would know, Perth's got a pretty strong running and triathlon scene. And just slowly got to know people, and that's how it all began for me.
And here you are today, looking down the barrel of the Olympics. And so what is it that you love about triathlon in particular? I mean, obviously you've come through running, which is something that I did as well. So I loved running, and it's a really great base to start triathlon, but there's something particular about the challenge of the 3 disciplines. And what is it for you that you love about it?
it certainly keeps you on your toes, and it is a challenge. It is cliche, but, you know, triathlon really is a lifestyle, and even post Tokyo or retirement, whenever that may be, I can still always see myself swim, bike, and running around the world. And, you know, even the places that I've raced and trained in over the last 2 to 3 years, I'm just so grateful for. And
yeah,
yes, there's times where it's pretty challenging and we're put to the test with hard sessions, but there's also times when I'm just enjoying the sights and riding around beautiful places, and yeah, seeing amazing scenery.
Yeah, and that's right. And then, as you say, it's the people as well. Like, you're in a really stimulating training camp with incredible, you know, Olympians, and it's just, yeah, they're amazing people, and they'll end up being friends for life as well. So you talked a bit about some of the challenges for you in terms of your leg, and so it's been I've been talking to you about qualifying for a few years now. I remember us talking about this quite a long time ago. So what are some of the challenges you've had to overcome to actually be able to be in this position where, from what I understand, you qualified for the Paralympics?
Yeah, so paratriathlon made its debut in Rio back in 2016. And at one stage I was classified, and then I was declassified. I guess you'd say back then the classification system still had a lot of grey areas, and was still sort of testing out what disabilities were eligible or not. And since then, the rules have changed for paratriathlon, and my category, PTS5, which I guess you could say is the most able-bodied of the paratriathlon class, now deems me eligible. So I'm racing guys that either have a slight leg deformity like myself, or the large majority of athletes I come up against basically missing a hand or fingers or something like that. And yeah, just the way it's worked out, most of the athletes without hands in my class are still very good swimmers. So you'd think I'd get a bit of an advantage in the swim, but yeah, there's still some phenomenal swimmers out there without a hand or even half an arm.
Yeah, incredible. Okay, so you've all coming with different challenges and different strengths by the sound of it. Yeah. And so what have been, you talked about traveling to different events. What have been some of your highlights so far for races?
I was lucky enough pre-COVID to spend a few months in Girona, which anyone in cycling or triathlon would know, which is one of the meccas of triathlon, particularly in Europe. Spending time with my coach Danielle Stefano at Alotic Pro Triathlon and her athletes, and yeah, just having, you know, the Spanish hills on my doorstep and seeing the amazing countryside was an awesome experience. But also the ability to just duck over to a country and do an international race as I please. So I was lucky enough to squeeze in quite a lot of races before COVID.
Well, that's right. I mean, looking back now, you just think that is just so, it's like another whole lifetime ago, isn't it, really? So lucky.
Yeah, and unknowingly, about maybe a month before the whole COVID hit the world, Triathlon Australia and I made this split decision to race in Turkey to get a few more points up my sleeve. I think I was in Turkey for about 4 whole days, including a race, and I was lucky enough to come second in that race. And that's been the last race I've done since COVID. So I got a bit of luck there in terms of gaining enough points before COVID to qualify for the Paralympics, compared to some athletes that have had the challenge of traveling and racing around the world the last 6 months and all the logistical challenges that goes with it.
Yeah, and although, you know, you're based in Perth and we have faced lockdowns, we have been relatively lucky here in WA, haven't we? So that you've been able to continue your training. So once you've at least got those qualifying points, you've been able to train pretty well.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about how good an environment Perth is in terms of the climate, the hills, the beaches, the parks, the trails. And I'm lucky enough to live basically within a K of the WA Institute of Sport. So when I am at home, I've got my own little 2K bubble, and it's literally got everything I need. So I can't wait to get back to my 2K bubble. And if I need to be based in Perth all the way to the lead up to Tokyo, I'm more than happy.
Yeah, that's great. And So I want to just talk a little bit now about your work as a dietitian and how that benefits you, or how you work that into your training as well, and how important do you think it is to your success?
Yeah, I'd like to think I certainly practice what I preach in terms of food as a sports dietitian, and touch wood, I've been very lucky that I haven't had any significant injuries in the last 18 months, and I'd like to contribute that to good sound nutrition practice. Interestingly, coming from an Ironman background and now to a sprint triathlon race, which is only an hour, I'm still probably nudging about 25 hours of training a week. And obviously, if you're not fueling well when you're training 25 hours a week, you're going to be burning the candle at both ends. So yeah, every day I'm applying everything I've learned as a sports dietitian over the years, and the networking and the opportunities that come about it through working with Triathlon Australia and the WA Institute of Sport has really set me up for hopefully later on in life where I could be a sports dietitian for some other organisation as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so do those organisations provide you dietary support as well? Or is that something you say, no, I'm good, I've got this?
They do offer it, and I'm always open to talking to a sports dietitian just to get new ideas and advice. Yeah, I don't think you can get too much advice in this elite world. That's
never get enough. Okay, and so talking advice, you're very good at dishing it out, Dave. Well, I love watching your socials, and so there's things that you see people do really well and people who aren't doing things so well. So can you give us your top 3 things that you wish triathletes and endurance athletes in general, 3 things that you wish that they would just do consistently each day that would actually shift the needle for them?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is fueling for the work required, which is probably the most famous nutrition saying in the last 10 years.
Yes, we've heard this before, but let's talk about it again. Yep. What does it mean?
Everyone's always coming to me asking me whether it's carbohydrates or whether it's fats, and yeah, my answer is both. There's certainly a time and place for all foods, but you know, from a fueling perspective, what we just got to keep in mind is that the greater the intensity, the greater the carbohydrate demand. So if I have a high intensity session first thing in the morning, or if an athlete has a high intensity session first thing in the morning, I'm always encouraging them to fuel before that training session, even if it is a short training session, so you can hit those high intensities. And then on the flip side, if you do have an easier session and you don't feel like eating, well, then rolling out of bed and training on a fasted stomach has its time and place. And then I guess my second tip that leads on from that is just how trainable the gut is. The gut's basically a working muscle, and it needs to get used to digesting fuel under the stress of exercise. And the most common reason I see athletes come to me with gut issues is that they're just simply not training the gut enough, or their training age is quite young. So if you are sort of hearing this and going, oh, geez, there's no way I could eat before a training session, then you're probably right, because you simply just haven't trained your gut enough to digest fuel under stress. So the more we train it, the more adapted the gut becomes, and then as a result, we can put better output in the session as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, actually. And I hear that a lot too. People say, oh, I just can't eat before I train. It's just impossible. I can't do it. I don't feel like it. But as with many things, when we're starting out in a new sport, or, you know, with a new coach or a new training program, you've just got to try them out and, you know, incrementally get better at it. In terms of pre-training, I've got an addiction to thank you for, actually, Dave. I used to maybe have a cup of tea before I went out training, and you suggested I give coffee a go pre-training. And now I cannot leave the house without a coffee before training. And it's whether I train or not, it's just stuck with me. So thanks for that, Dave.
It baffles me that triathletes that love coffee, yet a lot of them don't have caffeine before a training session. And, you know, it wasn't that long ago that caffeine was on the banned substance list. So the performance benefits are well and truly there. So, yeah, I won't leave the house without 2 long blacks or cold brews, which I have been making up in cans. And then I always enjoy a couple of coffees after a training session as well. So
performance benefits, and for me, to be honest, it's motivation. I just lie in bed and I think, just get a coffee, and once I'm getting the coffee, then I'm out the door. So thanks very much for that, Dave.
It gets
number
me
3
out of bed as well.
Number 3, third tip, to have a coffee.
Third tip,
on a daily basis, you know,
front end your day. Again, it's cliche, but you know, assuming that we're talking to endurance athletes here, you know, it's fair to say they're going to be doing a training session most mornings, and it's very rare, if ever, I've told an athlete they're having too much for breakfast. Because if they're getting breakfast right, they're going to maximize their performance and recovery goals to start the day, and then not only physically but also mentally, the day is going to flow so much better. And front ending the day is just going to set yourself up for better choices and outcomes later in the day. And I guess from a breakfast point of view, we've still got to differentiate the two. So pre-training fuel is exactly that. That's pre-training fuel. It's not breakfast. After training is when we have the more nutritious breakfast choices, such as your oats, your bircher, sourdough, your eggs, avo, cheeses, etc., etc. But pre-training fuel is very simple, and it's certainly not breakfast, because I do see a lot of athletes have what they think is breakfast before training, and not much after,
and then nothing after. And then that starts to impact their recovery. And so there are three things that I've heard you talk about before, and they're really important concepts that we all need to get our heads around. What about new stuff, Dave? Is there anything happening in nutrition that maybe you know, some of our listeners might not be aware of, things that you're getting excited about that you've seen some changes recently?
We've got a few little secrets that I won't share until after the games for Tokyo. But as you probably know, Tokyo is forecast to be the hottest ever Olympics and Paralympics. And when I did the test event back in 2019, the ground temp and the feel like temp, factoring in humidity and the heat bouncing off the road, all that sort of thing, was over 50 degrees. So we're certainly up against it. So keeping the core body temp down is going to be really important, particularly when we start the race. And if you keep a close eye on the start of both the triathlon and the para triathlon in the lead up to the event, you'll probably see athletes sipping on slushies or sports drink slushies. So the morning of the race, I'll be having a Bindi sports drink slushie with ice, not only to hydrate myself and top up electrolytes, but to physically bring the core body temp down internally. As nice as like a ice vest or bit of ice across the forehead feels, it's not really bringing the core body temp down. Whereas if we can ingest the slushie internally, it's bringing that core body temp down.
Yeah, great. Okay. And so these are all things that you've obviously been testing and training. We're not going to know exactly what you do until after you've won the Olympics. I'm sure you'll release it and tell us all about it then. So this has been part of your heat training. You've been doing some of it in Perth and some in Cairns as well, have you?
Yeah, so it's all about heat acclimation. So the body adapts to coping with the stresses that heat provides. And when I have been back in Perth, I've been in the heat chamber at the WA Institute of Sport every second day, where they crank the feel like temp up to 50 degrees. And the first few weeks in the heat chamber, it's basically quite scary. I remember my heart rate finishing at 160, 170 beats per minute, which is basically my race heart rate. Yet I was probably only pushing out 130 watts, which is 30-40% of my race power. The body adapts, and after sort of a month's work of heat acclimation, the power was better, the heart rate was lower, and the sweat rate was much more efficient as well. So that's the sort of stuff that we've been doing, so that when I do get to Tokyo, I can sort of still put the same output on the swim, bike, run. And what's also interesting as well is even the water temp in Tokyo is expected to be over 30, if not 32 degrees. So over the next couple of months, sourcing some hot local kiddies pools is going to be on the cards, and doing some hot swim sessions in there as well.
Come to our indoor pool in Busselton. It's steamy.
We've been looking for a lot of indoor 25-metre pools in Melbourne, and we're actually going to one to Melbourne tomorrow. So I can't wait to have a hard session in there.
Yeah, that'll get your heart rate up. Okay. So Dave, you sounds very methodical. You're really working towards being ready for the race conditions in terms of your nutrition, getting ready for the heat as well. Can you just give us an idea of what a regular day of eating with some training would look like for you?
I guess today was a pretty interesting day. I woke up this morning at about 4:45, and as we said, had a couple of black coffees to get me going. And then I had an easy 40-minute jog. I didn't need any fuel before that session because it was quite a low intensity jog. Came back, and ironically, I'm about 200 meters from this local sourdough place. So I'm very happy with that. And I had a couple of slices of sourdough with peanut butter and cottage cheese, and then another coffee, of course. And then that's when we were in the heat chamber at VIF on the bike for an hour, sipping on Bindi. And then straight after that, because the recovery time was quite short between riding and swimming, I had a protein shake with milk. As you probably know, milk's really good from a protein and carbohydrate perspective, but it's one of the best sources of rehydrating us as well. So I downed that quickly and had a banana, and then it was a easy 3K swim. And of course, because I'm organized, I then packed another sourdough roll with some cheese and avocado, because then I had to do a gym session. So I got the gym session done. Again, I had another cold brew on the side maybe. And that was my day by about 11:30. And since then, it's just about being not only refueling, but have a few more nutritious choices. So a lot of the snacks I was having were quite simple and easy to digest, whereas the lunch I had was a bit more protein, fibrous, vegetable, salad, carbohydrate rich, to help re-nourish the body. And then for the rest of the day, I'll just keep grazing across the day, because if I'm only eating 3 square meals a day, it's going to be near impossible to meet my energy requirements. Grazing across the day is really important.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I know we've talked about before, Dave, is that really by the time you get to dinner, all the feeding and the nutrition is done. So a lot of people will think, oh, what's for dinner? It's a big meal and how important it is. But actually, and this is a really good example of what you've just done, all the details were in the morning. Then it's a bit of refueling and grazing through the day. And by the time you get to dinner, it's sort of like, well, it doesn't need to be huge. And, you need to be able to digest it easily so you can get up early and start it all again. So it's not such a big deal when you get to dinner time.
Yeah, dinner's the least of my worries, particularly given that most of my training's in the morning. So it's all about context. Again, if there are athletes training later in the evening, obviously dinner's a lot more important. But yeah, generally speaking, if you're doing most of your training in the morning, dinner should really be an afterthought. And if you eat well across the day and you're tired and you're not that hungry and you prefer just to go to bed on a lighter stomach, I don't think that's such a bad outcome at all, because if you're doing all the right things early in the day, you're going to tick all the nutrition and energy boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now just back to the Bindi and the slushies. Obviously, you've been using Bindi for a while. So I'm interested to know that you're able to take your own nutrition with you while you compete. I assume they allow you to do that. So what is it that works for you with Bindi? So you're using our Bindi sports hydration product?
Yep. I use the electrolyte carbohydrate blend, which ticks all the boxes. And given that my race is quite short in terms of all being over in an hour, I won't be having a huge amount on the bike, because it's all about making sure that I'm well fueled and hydrated pre-race, so that during the race itself I can just focus on racing and keep as high of an intensity. So I'll be having very small sips of Bindi across the ride for that stimulatory effect, whereby the taste receptors
stimulating, isn't it?
Whereby the taste receptors basically convince the brain that it's getting adequately fed, even though I'm having very small sips of Bindi across the ride. And then the run will just be about minimizing damage. I'll have very small sips of probably just water and nothing else. And
Yeah.
hopefully my run is over before I know it, and then worry about rehydration after in a plunge pool or something like that.
Yeah, sounds good. And so nutrition wise, it sounds like you really, as you say, you're doing a lot of it before the race, especially with the sprint distance. There's not a lot to do during the race, as long as you've got your fueling set beforehand.
Yep, certainly for a sprint.
So for a sprint distance, that's right. Yeah, obviously Ironman or long distances, that's a completely different ball game, and
Yep.
the products get used very differently, and even through the run and the bike as well. So
Yep.
Dave, off the nutrition side of things, who inspires you? What is there an athlete out there that you look up to?
Well, right now my wife and daughter inspire me. I haven't seen them for 4 weeks now, so they're my inspiration, and I can't wait to see them when I get back. So they're my main source of inspiration, and they're holding the fort back at home. In terms of an athlete, I'm quite well known for having a man crush on Jan Frodeno. He's done it all in terms of Olympic distance and Ironman. So yeah, he's been one of the athletes I admire from a triathlon point of view.
Yeah, fantastic. It's certainly worth admiring. And Dave, what do you like to do when you're not swim, bike and running? I imagine it's a fair bit of family time.
Family time and food. Yeah, I've gotten in trouble in the past when traveling around the world, being a bit too much of a tourist, exploring all the local markets and coffee scene and bakeries and fruit and veg and produce stalls, and as a result probably being on my feet a little bit too much when really I should have my feet up. I have gotten better at that over the years, but yeah, that's another benefit of traveling, experiencing all the local cuisines and different foods. So yeah, that's my main passion.
Beautiful fresh stuff that you can pick up along the way, isn't there? Yeah. Oh, look, Dave, that's fantastic. I think it sounds to me like you're very well prepped. Hopefully you will get home to Perth for some family time before you head off to Tokyo. And look, we'll be following very closely, and we're really excited for you to be going. It's been a long road for you to qualify. So we're very proud to be part of your journey, and love that you'll be taking Bindi over to Tokyo with you. And we just wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much. It certainly takes a village to raise an athlete. So everyone back home, you know who you are. You've all played an important role, and I can't wait to get back in my little bubble in Perth and prepare as best I can in prep for Tokyo.